Sorry. I had to check to see if I hit the button or not. No, but I kinda got cut off by the last video, but no, take Choji from Naruto because of, the whole expanding power thing. Have him, genetically spliced or make love to Ant-Man, Hank Pym or Scott Lang, whichever one, because of the whole shrinking and increasing size thing. And then, put in Mr. Fantastic because, she's got that rubbery Stretch Armstrong kind of action, and that's pretty much elasti-girl. Now, we move on to Larry Tainer, otherwise known as Negative Man. Let's see if I can't enlarge the image. No, I can't. Now, Tainer was a military test pilot, and he was one of those, before, the thing that made him Negative Man, he was your stereotypical bleach blonde, dreamy hunk of the 30s and 40s. And one day when he was testing a new prototype jet, the guidance system had backfired and he launched upward and upward into space. And eventually, because of, the air pressures and everything, the astrophysics, he basically blacked out and he was left in, I believe they say, the ionosphere for a couple of hours. He was taking cosmic radiation or, like intergalactic radiation that emits around the Earth. I don't know. It's your stereotypical, comic book cliche thing. His jet crashes and a rescue team comes for him. However, the gyro to the front wheel of the jet gets stuck, and Larry, who's helpless and weak, he wants to reach out, he wants to warn them and everything, and then all of a sudden, this electric radio wave hybrid, like, dark entity shoots out of Larry's body and is controlled by his mental thoughts. And Negative Man is actually pretty much, he's a separate entity from Larry. He is controlled by Larry through telepathy. And the cool part about Negative Man is that he can travel almost within the same time frame as, say, the speed of light or the equivalent of. He also can shoot electrical beams. He can pass through solid objects, anything but lead. He cannot pass through lead. And you would think, oh, that's cool. Well, because of all the radiation, Larry pretty much has to remain bandaged, on like his hands and his head, because his whole entire body emits radiation. And if you really want to know what Larry looks like without the Negative Man bandages, this is what he looks like. Let me see if I can. That's pretty much what Larry looks like without the bandages. And not exactly too pretty. I mean, he looks translucent, and the reason why he has to wear those bandages on his head and arms, or his head and hands. I'm getting confused. His head and his hands is because his body soaked up so much radiation that he not only looks like that, but if you were to take it off, anyone close to him would actually die from fatal poisoning or just melt after a while. I mean, he basically becomes like a human X-ray machine or something. It's one of those things that you have to read it to believe it. Excuse me. And they have a thing where General or Dr. Immortus, the Chief's enemy, as well as the Doom Patrols, had put like these mechanical robots, had attack choppers, nearly everything. I mean, the guy's like uberly rich. And Larry has, as a last resort, Larry pulled off his bandages. And this is from the issue where he takes those bandages off. And within, I would say, 2-3 mile radius, power was going out in buildings, helicopter was taken down, people that were near Larry, especially elasti-girl, started getting sick, Robot Man got all like haywire-y. The mechanical soldiers just basically melted / you know, just malfunction. Computers were blowing up, helicopters were crashing. I mean, basically, you know, pretty much, you know, Larry has to keep these special, you know, like liquid lead, you know, notice the air quotes, liquid lead, you know, bandages on his body, because that, you know, that keeps the radiation from, you know, basically incinerating everyone and blowing up everything. And it's ironic that I bring up Robot Man, because he's the last member of the original Doom Patrol. Cliff Steele, aka Robot Man, and pretty much the Doom Patrol's version of Ben Grimm. Cliff Steele was an obsessive daredevil. I mean, this is a guy who would skydive out of a plane, and for the last 100 yards or feet or so, he would then pull his parachute. I mean, he was an adrenaline junkie. He was an obsessive daredevil. And while doing a racetrack thing, you know, doing like a high-speed NASCAR thing, his car spun out of control and exploded as it hit the wall. His body burnt to a cinder. The only thing salvaged from him was his brain. And his brain was placed in this autonomic robotic body. And pretty much his robotic body is armored. And, you know, in place of lungs, he's got oxygen tanks. He's got a breathe filter, all this stuff. His brain is encased in, you know, locked down in a secure part of, you know, the top part of his head. You know, it's locked away, it's kept safe, the vitals are good. And they've said that, and I'm not good with numbers, I'm not a mathematician, I can never really read numbers very clearly, but I think his body can take a total pressure of like 20,000 pounds. Of like pure metric pressure. You know, I mean, they tried to judge it by, you know, pressing an elevator down on him. Or a weighted elevator or something. And what's interesting too is that Cliff's body has been described as being, you know, really durable. Like basically his entire robotic body, the actual metal is the same kind of metal that they would use in military APCs or light infantry tanks. So he's pretty durable. Bullets bounce off of him and all that stuff. And he can survive various degreed heights. Like he can actually probably go to, you could probably drop him to the bottom of the ocean and the metric pressure wouldn't really mess with him too much. And he also has been able to withstand, at least partially, being under, I would say, under the first or second crust of the earth. So, you know, Cliff is a pretty durable, you know, guy. And that's pretty much the Doom Patrol in general. You know, that's pretty much... Sorry, I had to blow into the camera. There we go. In the last couple of seconds, man, yeah, that's the Doom Patrol. And that is why... And even though, you know, they're not very well known, you know, they still are pretty cool characters. I consider at least, you know, the original team, Elasti-Girl, Negative Man, the Chief, and Robot Man to be pretty much, you know, DC's Fantastic Four. That's pretty much all. You know, look forward to the next time that I do lesser known but awesome heroes. Hey, this will be, I guess, like an end of the clip, you know, blooper. I completely forgot to neglect to tell you guys when I was talking about Negative Man. But when Negative Man goes out of Larry's body, you know, Larry becomes very weak. He's very aware of what's going on, but he can't move, and he's very, you know, weak. So he's very vulnerable to attack once he summons Negative Man out of his body. And also, there's a 60-second time frame, so if within 60 seconds Negative Man is not back in Larry's body, Larry goes into anaphylactic shock and dies. So it's very important that Negative Man, you know, gets back into Larry's body on time. However, in the comics, I think Larry's been able to push himself now to where he can go maybe 2 minutes now. I'll have to look that up, but yeah, kind of an end of the clip, you know, blooper.